key thing. Cameron, we added some flags here to show EU countries as well as which ones are on the euro. We'll talk about the integrations here of currency, right? Matching. If you think about the actual goods here, the energy resources traveling from east to west, from the supply market into kind of Eastern Europe and Germany, you see kind of a trend of EU expansion from the membership perspective over time. Obviously Germany, Austria, Czech Republic, Hungary, going back decades to the kind of the origination of the union itself. But in kind of recent developments, you've seen things like Romania, Bulgaria adding on, and then this year, as I said, you saw that expansion of the monetary, sovereignty shifting from nation states towards that big bureaucratic blob body, that we call the Brussels and Frankfurt kind of center of gravity in Europe. So I think what you're looking at here, if you think about the Russia-Ukraine situation as reflective of largely kind of economic interests, European access to resources for its own economic growth, solvency of its own credit-based financial system, all of that. Pushing further, and I mean Turkey is also a big player on this map, right? I think they've had their EU member application open since, I don't know, it goes back pretty far. It's at least 2005.
Yeah.
It's been on hold for that entire time. That entire time, meaning like a couple of decades now, as this situation is working towards some big historical resolution. We'll see how this plays out. But then you've got the pipelines over into Baku, which has been, heavily oil producing since the early 1900s, and then over, into Iran. And we all know what's happening in Iran lately with a military kinetic situation that's, on pause now and looking for some sort of diplomatic agreement here to achieve some new steady state. We'll talk about that at the end. And then Armenia would be in the middle here, but between Georgia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Iran. And it just kind of shows me the importance from the EU's perspective, the access to energy resources, pushing forward the integration of these supply chains up the, through Anatolia, or from the Caucasus through Anatolia, up through the Balkans and Central Europe. All of these crazy political developments, the complicated alignments. At the end of the day, it's largely driven by the access to resources, and then the financial layer, the political layer. Those will kind of respond to that battle taking place. All right. And then last, the Trans-Caspian Pipeline here. This is the big Kahuna development. This would actually link through this terminal, those pipelines we just described, to like across the Caspian Sea into Turkmenistan, which at some point you're getting further and further away from Europe, right? And you're integrating all of these, we call like these are new Silk Roads at the end of the day. It's part of the revival of land-based trade routes in the 21st century that we're seeing taking place for the first time in really 500 years. But this new terminal is just pushing further these the full integration from the supply markets that just keep going further and further east towards the ultimate consumption center at the far or last stops in the hub that really start to hit deeper and deeper west onto the European peninsula. So that's what's going on here. The like it will create conflict. I mean, we've seen military conflict in the Caucasus, region. Um, there's a lot of effort from the White House, this administration, to try to establish peace in this little isthmus that's been termed the International North-South Trade Corridor. Um, but I think it's the ideal kind of setup here would be everyone, I don't know, doing what they can to play nice with each other from the four main regional sphere of influence powers perspective, as opposed to, any one of those, instead of cooperating with each other or figuring out some sort of steady state solution, um, unilaterally taking action, right? Or broadly their power block taking action to insert themselves in here. It's only going to make this situation worse, or increase the probability of a worse military situation, bigger military situation developing than we're already at with this Ukraine-Russia conflict opening up, the Iran military actions opening up, Israel and its neighbors conflict actually opening up, Azerbaijan and Armenia opening up and being put back under wraps, but risking, opening back up over something like this. Um, it's it's dangerous times, and this is where we actually need, if we want to see peace, you actually would need competent diplomatic and political leadership here guiding the process, and I hope our leaders are up to it. Um, Sometimes I question whether they are, but I guess history will reveal itself. All right. So some things going on recently that might not have been on all of our radar. So Bulgaria, we talked about them just onboarding the euro as of January at elections, and the what would be probably broadly described as the candidate who more aligned towards Russia, or at least that's how it's presented, rather than EU, prevailed in what was pretty much a landslide election victory, a result. So this will play in to the upcoming development. Yeah, pro-Russian, according to Reuters, London-based newswire, and I'd say that's probably accurate. He would lean more that direction, but I'm not like totally an expert on everybody
Yeah,
and
all their political leanings.
the
Yeah.
alignment in this whole region, because I'll just lay it out at the end how big of a mess it actually is. You've got so many relationships between neighbors that don't get along, and then there's just a lot of interrelationships between neighbors of neighbors that
Yeah.
the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of setup. And once you just wrap your head around all of this, you're like, what is going like this is a total mess.
PhD theses
So
are written on
it,
on
it is
individual
it is
pieces.
very
Yeah.
complicated, and it's hard to see, even the wise Solomon being able to come up with the perfect solution here. All right, that's for hopefully us to figure out, as time goes on, uh, without having to resort to catastrophic violence. All right. So you saw that changeover and political representation in Bulgaria. Interesting. It's like, so if you think about EU push inserting itself into Armenia, which has its own elections coming up in June, right? Just right around the corner, a month from now. So they're making a big push. Um, they just lost ground in Bulgaria, and then also they just lost a lot of ground in Romania as well, as their pro-European government collapsed. And then, a side article here on the currency front. So at the end of the day, Mind Print Hash, we want to focus on this on the financial evolution and how the geopolitics is really going to respond to um, the transitions and developments and how or what societies do at the monetary layer is what we're looking for signal, right? And May 5th, in conjunction with this same story that the standing government did not survive a no confidence vote, so there will be elections there as well. Um, the political crisis is again testing the country's managed float currency regime. So you've got the Romanian leu, LEU, doesn't show up on anybody's radar globally as a currency. It's really it's a local currency, right? Um, the central bank allowed the leu to weaken to record lows this week. When we say record lows, I got the chart. This is our financial chart this week. The euro Romanian leu cross exchange rate. You got kind of an interesting development here since 2008. It's been broadly what's been happening as we're going from one global economic growth engine model to the next thing. And the way I kind of picture this is your post World War I to 2008 global trade setup, which was largely based on, hey, American Navy is going to protect the high seas. Everybody will reserve and settle in the dollar. And then with those safe high seas, manufacturing, exports can float on ships, vessels, etc., and move those goods from their production sources of supply country, centers of demand, and we're just going to crank that up, dial it up to as far as it can go. Well, that whole order, like it showed like it broke at the seams, like it was on its last leg in 2008. For the last 18 years now, we've been in this lull period. It's not 18 years, actually. I'd say it's the next thing started with COVID, right, in 2020. But let's say for that intermediate period between 2008 and 2020, we were just kind of biding time and consolidation, figuring out what was next. And now we're moving to the next thing, right? The next model, which we're seeing emerge in real time. And that's where we'll talk about things like Pax Silica or the land-based New Silk Road trade routes, all of that. But my point is the policy, and we want to talk specifically about Romania here, which I'm no expert on at all, but I'll look at the chart and see what's look for the financial chart to inform our perspective on what's going on here. We know there's been efforts to integrate Romania into the European orbit, right? The EU economic zone, political zone, currency zone, all of that. And then that will collide at its head with the Russian sphere of influence. And this is just something that happens, every 100 years, really, in European history. Napoleon, and then you had the two world wars, and we're seeing it today. Like it's happening with the Ukraine war, and then it's happening, sadly, with what's developing, potentially escalating over into the Caucasus region. But my point is, during this lull, what you saw from the Romanian central banking policy and approach to managing their currency, basically, like they didn't adopt the euro. They've got to meet these criteria to onboard in if they have the support of their people, in the democratic process to go one way versus the other. And it's a tug of war, right? You've got certain political regimes or representation that'll lean more European, and then the population will sway the other direction. This is the messy process of these things settling out. But from the currency standpoint, you've seen an approach where the local central bankers have allowed this process to manage itself through a bend but don't break, FX currency weakening, and that's where you see this upward trend over time, right? As what's happened was a growth model that might have worked pre 2008, which was heavily dependent on European foreign direct investment capital inflows into Romania. You had growth driven by consumption increases to bump up GDP. That kind of stalled out in this kind of 10-year decade interregnum after 2008. And what it started to shift towards is more of a fixed investment, building up infrastructure, that type of thing, economic focus, and kind of the the safety valve to keeping that process. And on the other side of that, the capital account. They're in a situation, Romania, where they've got a habit of having positive capital account surpluses, which means, hey, more foreign capital coming in to fund growth. And then you've historically seen trade account deficits, right? So it's just like borrowing to fund, let's say, consumption, right? In the old world model, but those trade deficits have persisted as the Romanian economy typically consumes externally more than it gives back and exports to those same trade partners. All right, so it's kind of a situation that reminds me a lot of the U.S. here, but just on a much smaller level, and you kind of see hallmarks of that same kind of policy approach for the next era, the focus on, say, reindustrializing or, wanting that type of economic growth as opposed to, hey, we're just going to consume our way towards prosperity, which can only work for so long by definition. So I think one of the key things we've seen in the last week or since this Iran situation was, let out of the bag since the coordinated operation by Israel and the United States on February 28th. You've seen the volatility in the euro, Romanian leu cross exchange rate. It's broken through 5, and that's been the case since the second half of 2025. But all of the kind of the natural resources demand issues or supply chain issues coming out of the Persian Gulf, you see it start to hit these periphery economies the hardest. So if you look at inflation here, those type of effects, that's having an impact as well here. So you're seeing over the long term, the trend is currency weakening of the local currency versus like a major global currency like the euro. It's not the major global currency, not even close in my opinion. But you see on a relative basis, you see the weakening of this periphery country, Romania. So what I'm illustrating here is the tug of war that's being felt by the countries in the middle, and they're just being pulled apart and stressed and stretched and forced to deal with the majority of kind of the effects of the kind of that battle taking place between the heavyweights, like say the EU or Russia, on the other end.
Yeah.
So that's that. Like these countries, and we can see it in the news, right? It's noticeable at this point. Don't want to talk deeply on this one, but Hungary, with its recent elections, you saw the exit of Orban and the onboarding of new leadership with Magyar, I think is how you pronounce the name. But you see kind of a shift, a change in direction from the prior stance of the Orban kind of regime that's been in place for decades. So this will have big repercussions, but really what we're getting across, you see the changing tides across all the EU countries. Cameron, we did have a slide up right about Bulgaria. Did we go through that
We
one?
did,
Yeah,
yeah.
we
But
talked about
I
those.
just wanted to highlight
Romania,
on here, it's
Bulgaria. Yeah.
Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, right? Those are those 3 countries that we just talked about having major regime shifts in the last month. So if
Yeah.
you're just watching the map, you're just kind of seeing the countries along the way get influenced one way or the other.
Yeah. And then notice, I think the last call out, who was not there at that EU Armenia summit at the United States, right? They don't read too much into their words, but sometimes silence speaks louder than words, right?
Yep.
And I I don't think, like, if you view the situation, this isn't the US's backyard, right? We don't really have economic interests here. If anything, like the US is just, its interest is to play a role and make sure um, this whole thing doesn't get too out of hand, or at least that's how I read it. Now, individual stakeholders, business, like private business interests, they may want to influence the U.S. government towards their own um, book of business and those types of alignments. But I think broadly speaking, from the U.S. interest perspective, this is not our backyard. Our goal here, in my opinion, uh, would, should, whatever. Those are interesting words to place. Kind of my own feelings on the topic on, but I think from the U.S. perspective, like at the best case, our interest should be just prohibit the complete mess of the situation from devolving into like all out military escalation. And if you just think about the setups here, you've got so many strange adversarial relationships at play. Greece doesn't get along with Turkey. They're fighting over contests of islands in the Mediterranean that have been under contest. They've been fighting over them for the entire civilizational history of their people. Same thing with ethnic clashes in the Caucasus, the Central Europe, the Balkans, well known ethnic tensions between certain groups. Iran is now involved in this. You see some of the pipelines traversing through certain territories. It's all it's complicated, right? And I don't know what a perfect solution looks like. I just hope we are capable of finding one without I don't know what's the word for this, Cameron?
I
The
mean, frankly,
doomsday
just without World
scenario.
War
Yeah.
III. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. Let's not go there. But it's hard. It's a very tough task. It'll take competence to get it done, and a lot of capable maneuvering.